copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
So seconded.
Thank you. Your votes, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. First on the agenda is Mrs. Timmerman, and she's going to talk to us about the strategic plan for the preschool.
This is a lot of words for me, so this is a little trick. So, the preschool's been excited to look at our strategic plan, and we really love the process that we're doing it as a living document, that we're meeting as a strategic plan team, looking at it, making plans each month, and going back. So, it's a nice vision for us. We've been really working hard on strategy 1, action plan 2, step 3, and I don't have paper for you, I'm so sorry. Examining the current plan on assessing mental health needs to our families, and so that there's less stigma. We started the Circle of Security class. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that class. It's a class where parents can come in, and it's just helping them understand relationships and how to help kids. So we are halfway through our first class, but our goal is to have those be running classes. The court can appoint those classes, and families can complete those for a court obligation, or people can just come in. Again, it's the stigma. It's getting people to say, yes, I just want to come into a class. I have 2 teachers going through it right now, and those teachers are like, I've learned so much with this class. So normalizing coming in and just getting help. So, and it's not even getting help, it's just learning new information. It is a 6-week class, so we've had the same people stay in it the entire time, so we're excited about that. Another plan that we've been working on is action plan 4, step number 2. And that's about busing. We know that busing is always fun, and it's really a lot of fun when you work with first-time parents that have never done it before. And so we want to set it right, and we want to help parents and teachers and paras do it. So one thing we did is set a survey out to our paras, asking what kind of help they needed, and we've done some things with that, so that's been nice for us as well. Another thing that we've done is strategy 2, action plan 1, which talks about poverty. We've really worked a lot on that in preschool. We had Bridges Over Poverty, the training, come, and our entire staff did that. We started the diaper closet, something that I'm excited to share with you guys soon, and open. I was gonna open it yesterday, but life. So it's ready, we're stocked enough to have people come, and it's just, you don't have to qualify. We all know that sometimes life is hard, and sometimes you just need an extra hand. So the diaper closet is there for people just to come and get free diapers, and we're going to just do kind of the honorary system of you need help, we get it, and just come do it. We're going to take names just and ask if they need other programs or what programs they're involved in, but our goal is just to be a helping hand for the community. So that is going to open, and we're super excited about that. We're also trying to do some parenting trainings on TikTok, because our parent advisory group has said, have you guys tried getting information out on TikTok? Teachers don't love that, but we're trying it because they don't want to be on there. And the coolest thing that we're doing this year with the preschool staff is focus on strategy 2, action step 2, or action 2, step 1, exploring school-wide social emotional learning, and strategy 3, action 3, step 2, providing ideas for staff development that will tie into, that is relevant and to maintain staff. So behavior is always an issue. We know that from the time they enter to the time they leave our school system. We had a national speaker, Dan St. Romain, I think you've heard me talk about him before, come in. He has an online course. So our teachers are taking this online course and going through it together. Is it extra work for them? Absolutely. They have to take time to watch the course. It's about 15 minutes a week. And then at PLC, they come and talk about it. There's things like following directions, paying attention, getting the teacher's attention appropriately, handling disappointment. So they watch the videos, talk about it at PLC, implement it in their classroom, and come back at PLC and talk about it. The consistency in the language throughout the preschool is absolutely amazing. I'm just going to say some of the quotes that they said about it. I think that having everyone on the same page in the school is amazing. At recess, we can say, with common language, every child is able to understand what we mean. All teachers are using the language, which makes things so great when another teacher is talking to the student. It is one of the best trainings that we've done. Staying engaged better, and I'm doing better with practical skills instead of worrying about what I can do better with a theme. We always talk in education that you got to get rid of the fluff and get down to the meat and potatoes. They're seeing it. It's kind of fun to watch. I'm really realizing I don't need to read the Apple books with the Apple theme because other skills are so much more important. As for my students, they're picking up on the language and callbacks. This course has been wonderful professional development. It is helping me be a better teacher and a reflective teacher. My students love the actions and I hear them using the language throughout the day. So I have more of that. It's just fun to see professional development, keep teachers in the classroom because behavior is better and they want to do better. So that's kind of my action plan, our plans.
Can you tell me about busing? What
Yeah.
is the issue with busing?
Busing is hard and we always have paras ride the bus. Because we don't want to put the 3 and 4-year-olds on a bus by themselves. Number one, not in car seats because it's a state law that they don't have to be in car seats. So you have 3 and 4-year-olds on a bus with the bus driver. So we always have a para on the bus as well. When you have a bus route and have 4 different paras on 4 different days running that bus, and each one of them has a different set of expectations, that's hard on kids. It's hard on the driver. It's really hard on the driver. And so we have tried to keep paras like to 2 a week, so it's just 2 people instead of 4 different people, really shore down on the expectations and ask them what they need. And so we've done that, and I do feel like people are talking, if we have a set of expectations, if kids aren't behaving, this is what happens here, this is what happens here, so it's very concrete. There's no wishy-washy around, and it's going much better.
Does PBIS come with language?
PBIS is an overall philosophy. So the language of PBIS is to be consistent and to make everyone know their expectations.
So this new thing fits in with that?
Absolutely, yes.
And how much did it cost?
How much did the Dan St. Mike course cost? A lot, $250 a teacher. But what we're doing is then sharing that knowledge. So we were gonna have everyone in our school go through it, but we thought, okay, teachers, you can teach your paras. You know, you're in there all the time. When we're doing it, we have a binder and he breaks it down. He's a teacher by profession, so he teaches adults. So he has it broken down into 3 different parts when you're taking notes. So we all take the notes. I invite you to come over on a Wednesday morning on a PLC and listen to the dialogue and the discussion that these teachers are having during this because it's rich. I mean, they're like, well, you know, we're having this and this because of this, and the understanding is just huge. And he talks about this is your skill, these are your connecting skills, and they're getting it. And I'm getting it. I mean, I'm learning so much just to go through the course, because I'm doing it with them, because I'm like, if they're all using the language, I need to use the language as well.
I'm just curious
Yeah,
about it.
no, it's, it would be great for blast staff, and for, I just sent a survey out to PK5 teachers asking if anyone wanted to take the course, because they're excited about Dan St. Romain. He came, was that just last
October.
week?
Yeah, last week, Monday, yeah.
Wow.
Seems like
He
2
came
weeks
last
ago.
week, and the
Yeah.
teachers heard him and understand that he's practical. He talked about when he first came, he said, I'm from Chicago, a kid bit me so hard they had to pry him off, and another kid threw me through the 2nd story window in Chicago. I've been there, and these are things that work. And he is not about the flashy lights and the whatever. He's about, you need to set expectations, everyone needs to know what you're doing, and you need to go from there. So, but in a loving, and relationships are number 1. So, I'm a big Dan Samro. I love him.
Well, in both professional development opportunities that we had last Monday for elementary and then for middle school, high school, both of those people that came in and worked with our staff spoke about cutting the fluff out and focusing on what's the most important thing. And so that was really good. And we heard great feedback from both,
Yeah.
from the staff district-wide.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I'm gonna go back to, we are having parent-teacher conferences right now, so I'm gonna head back and hang out there, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Seer and Mr. Boyd will talk about the high school strategic
Mr.
plan.
Boyd isn't here tonight. He's at, we have district, sub-district volleyball at Norris. So I'll be speaking to you tonight. Mr. Boyd's helping Mr. Brown control our students and our games. So I'm honored to speak to you tonight. I would speak, as Missy did, that having a strategic plan that is focused towards our building is a good move. It gives us a chance to narrow our focus. When we had strategic plans, this is the 3rd one I've been through, it was a huge document that was somewhat cumbersome to go through and find what were we supposed to be doing. But by doing it this way and giving us a chance to develop our own high school strategic plan is, I would encourage that to be done, or at least considered in the future. It's been a good change. I'm here this evening, I'm gonna share, we've got a lot of strategic plans. I've got 3 things I just wanna bring to your attention. We'll be working on many of them, but these are 3 that we think by the end of the year we'll have a real good grip on. The first one is strategic plan 1, action plan 2, action step 2. And I didn't know that, I guess I didn't realize you didn't have these. So the resulting statement is that we will address the areas of concern related to safety and security in all facilities. So what we're doing, the first one is we also are doing something with our school improvement team this year that's different, where we're actually having 5 sub-teams work within our 10 school improvement teachers or leaders, and we're developing goals within those school improvement teams that also mesh with our strategic plan action steps. So the reason I share that with you is we've got a group of teachers working on this as an idea that they had. It would make our school a safer, more secure, more safe environment. So we're working right now with Lisa Farnes and Infinite Campus called Campus Workflow. It's within our Infinite Campus system we already utilize, and we're going to create a student ID. And that student ID will allow our students to use that ID. It'll be something similar to this. We will get lanyards or clip-ons or whatever we need, but students will have a student ID. They will utilize that ID when they go through the lunch system, when they get their lunch at lunch. They will use it if they need to check out of a classroom to go to the restroom, and it's simply checking out of the room, going to the restroom, coming back in the room, checking back in, or also for attendance and for other things that might be available through the Infinite Campus program. We think, and the sub-team thinks strongly that this will make a difference on knowing where our kids are during the day. We sometimes get as best of our efforts, we'll get a student that will ask a teacher to use the restroom. 15, 20 minutes later, they haven't returned back. We're not sure where they're at. We as administrators go out and look for them. That won't necessarily take that all away, but it will be a way for us to check on how long kids have been out of the classroom. And it also will help us with attendance, which I think will also improve our tardies. So we estimate the completion of this action step by the end of this school year. Mrs. Farnes and I have been working to set up a plan to meet with some experts from Infinite Campus on what we need to get these IDs made, what we need for hardware to go with the computers for the check-in and check-out, and we're working through that process with her. Okay? The second one I would like to tell you about is action step strategy 2, action plan 1, step 1, which is develop and implement a systematic approach to addressing student poverty. And I'm going to go back to what we talked about at the school board meeting with this Beatrice High School mini market with our partnership with the community food pantry. We basically have that completed. It's just working on the nuts and bolts of how it's going to work, how do we help students in a confidential and respectful manner, and how do we continue with funding. Since our presentation, Officer Lauenstein and I presentation to the board, we've had 3 or 4 anonymous donors step forward saying they'd like to donate. We have the community food pantry saying that they've had people contact them saying they'd like to donate food that would possibly directly go to help our high school age students. And as Dora said at the meeting, what a great way for us to partner with a community agency to help our students that are faced with poverty. I want to stress again tonight that we're not, and I've got to, will they see these notes eventually?
I can send it to, yeah, well, through
Well,
Danielle,
I don't know if
but-
they, I've got a statement that I gave to Christina Lyons, it'll be run in a newspaper, that I want to stress again to you, we're not minimizing the backpack program. We just didn't see the backpack program was having a direct impact on high school age students, and this definitely has the potential to do that. So I feel really good about this. Officer Lauenstein has worked really hard on it. Our staff is bought in. Sounds like our community is supportive of it. I know you spoke highly of it as a board. And so I'm anxious to actually tell you that we feel like we've kind of already completed one of the things that was in our strategic plan. It's just working on the nuts and bolts and making it work and making adjustments if we need to.
I think I'd like to say I'm really impressed with the fact that you emphasize that you're gonna do this in a dignified manner, because I think that's particularly important at the high school level.
Yeah,
That you're not gonna have students, no matter how hungry they are,
yeah.
do that if
Well-
they're singled out or pointed out or
Yeah.
any of that thing.
And
So I really respect that and thank you for that.
You're welcome. We know that kids at the high school age level won't fill out their free and reduced lunch forms because of the stigma with that. So we're working on how do we, Officer Lowenstein's kind of set up an email, and just kids have been approaching him and myself, and we're working with them privately, and so far it's working well. So the last one I want to tell you about tonight is Strategy 5, Action Plan 2, Step 1 and 2. And the result statement is develop a district-wide systematic approach to meet student behavioral needs. This goes right along with our PBIS work that we're doing at the high school level. The thing that, and again, this goes with one of our sub-teams on our school improvement committee sub-team. We wanted to establish a diverse peer roundtable groups of students, paraeducators, and other professionals, so that those folks have a voice within our education system to speak about what we're seeing in our classrooms for behaviors, what ideas we have for change to improve those behaviors, and give, sometimes we get feedback that we don't give our students and maybe even our staff or maybe even parents a voice in educational decisions. And this action step gives us a chance to set up those diverse roundtable discussions. This group of teachers has talked to me. They want to invite groups of kids that maybe are not, that are diverse, that are not always stamped from a certain type of student in our school. Give those kids a chance to, we're gonna serve them a lunch, we're gonna ask them some questions, and just have some dialogue with those kids and those paras and teachers about what they see as good things about our school, what things they see as bad things about our school, or things we could improve, and what kinds of behaviors that we want to improve upon. And so I really like this. I like that our teachers came up with it, because it does give a lot of people some more voice in decisions that are made and how we go about improving our behaviors at the high school. The second part of that is we're also, that same group of teachers is going to develop a reward system. We've developed the Orangeman Code of Ethics. If you're ever at the high school, in our commons area, we've got a shield, and this PBIS team has done the work behind these posters. There's one for the commons area, there's one for classroom, there's one for hallways. There's a fourth one, I can't remember what it is. Oh, as fans or students engaging in supporting our teams. And we've identified what appropriate behaviors would be. Kind of like the old Boys Town model said, this is how you react when these things happen, this would be how you do that. Well, PBIS does the same. And so when we see kids doing a good job and following those code of ethics, this group of teachers and our administrative team want to develop some kind of a reward system, something that shows our students that we recognize they're following those behavior plans, and they're adjusting their behavior for what we find appropriate in school. And both of these will be completed by the end of this school year by that sub-team. So, any questions on those three? Okay, I'll be back in a little bit to talk to you about some other things. Oh, I can?
Yeah.
Well, I got some handouts already.
Okay. That works.
Dr. Nielsen's gonna talk about graduation policy.
Okay, I am handing around a policy, the first, and then a regulation. The policy has been adjusted, the regulation has not, so I will go through with you kind of what the regulation will look like. But I will give you a little bit of background knowledge as to what we're looking at with this graduation policy. In the legislative session during 2022, the state legislature passed LB 1112. LB 1112 includes computer science and technology education in the instructional program of its elementary and middle school, beginning in the school year 24-25. Additionally, it requires public school students to complete at least one 5-credit high school course in computer science and technology prior to graduation, beginning with school year 26-27. Districts may offer the course in a traditional classroom setting, a blended learning environment, or an online-based or other technology-based format. So those are the specifics from LB 1112. So at this point in time, the state has provided little guidance to districts. However, we have to move forward, because if you look at the 26-27, the class of 26-27, those are our current 8th graders. We have a registration handbook that has to be printed soon. Their graduation requirements need to be in that registration handbook. So we are currently meeting and trying to figure out, how do we address this? How do we meet this unfunded mandate that has been passed down to us by the state? We're looking at a plethora of approaches, and we're doing that because we know we do not have resources. We know we do not have enough courses currently at the high school to meet this requirement. So we're looking in person, we're looking online, we're looking at other blended approaches, and as many approaches as we possibly can. Currently, we offer an AP computer science course, we offer information technology, and we have our BEAM course. However, at this point in time, we don't have standards. So we are not sure if those 3 courses would meet the standards that will be developed by the state. So again, we're kind of in a holding pattern. The other thing that we have been doing is we have adjusted our 8th grade course. We had an 8th grade keyboarding business course. We're adjusting that to infuse more STEM computer science technology into it. And we are using curriculum that comes from Amazon. Wasn't it Amazon? Yeah, okay. So that is one of the areas that we're looking at, that this could be a potential piece that we could utilize, because we can give high school credit for an 8th grade course as long as it meets the high school standards. So that's one of the areas that we are looking at, that all students take that 8th grade course. All students could finish those standards, and then they would have credit by the time they get to high school. Now, we have students that move in that we will need to figure out, do we offer an online course and have a teacher kind of help proctor that online course? Where is that housed? Do we, if they move in, do they then look at the other courses that they have to take? So those are some things we're kind of working for, because we need to make sure that we have, or if they don't pass the 8th grade course, how do we make sure that they get caught up in that scenario? So we are looking at all different sorts of things.
When does the state typically put out the standards for these?
I don't know. It depends, and right now there's an influx at the state and a lot of changes happening. So I don't know. We've asked questions,
I'm
and
just
we
curious
had
if it's,
in September. I was gone from the Cow meeting because I was at our curriculum directors meeting, and we asked the question to the state, because a lot of large districts print their handbooks at the end of September. We kind of wait a little bit, but a lot of large districts have everything in place. So they were very uneasy about trying to determine, and then having to go back and make changes and say, oh, sorry, that doesn't meet the letter of the law, so now we have to adjust and go from there. So usually they should have them out before. Yeah.
So now all the job shadowing will go away.
No, that's still there. That's still a requirement.
It says, it's
So-
crossed off on my sheet.
It's all combined. We're just calling it 1 semester of personal finance. That includes that career education,
Oh.
and we're just giving it one title.
Oh,
then it
I
just-
see.
Yeah.
Those were,
Okay,
those were two
Right.
separate quarter classes.
Yeah.
right.
And they
right.
still are, but we're just calling it
When the
1
s-
semester
When
of
the
personal
state
finance.
came out and
that's just
said
the
we had to
new
call it, when the state came out and said we had to provide a semester of personal finance, we just took the 2 quarter classes, which one was called personal finance, the other was career exploration, and just named them as a semester class, personal finance. So we're still we're still doing all the job shadowing and all that.
Oh, okay, good, okay.
Just 1 quarter of it deals more with the job shadow, but we have linked that very closely to personal finance, as in, okay, let's look at your career exploration. Where do you want to go? And what are you looking at as to, okay, do you have to go to college? So what do the college loans look like? Are you going out into the workforce? What does that look like? How much, what funds will you bring it in? So it's more about that literacy that really is tied directly to what they're gonna do after they leave our school.
Can you explain Amazon curriculum?
We would have to get Mr. Hoagland in here to explain that.
This is not Amazon as I know Amazon.
This is not Amazon shopping curriculum, no. No, I would sign up for that course, but no,
Somebody
that
else
is
is gonna
not.
think that.
Yeah.
I would say,
Huh?
just with experience with
Oh.
my daughter in 7th grade, Mr. Hoagland has done a tremendous job of changing that whole curriculum, especially in the middle school. I mean, with Clara, it wasn't just keyboarding, it was, some programming, a lot of things, and she loved it. So, and it was cool too, what they were doing.
Yeah, so it was a lot of, because Mr. Hickey came in, was that part of his strategic plan
He
presentation
did.
last?
Yeah, he talked about
Okay,
it. It probably not in as much depth as what
Right.
you've had personal experience with, but he did talk about how, they've had donations of computers just given to them that take it apart, fix it, put it back together, so there's a whole wide range of things. One of the things I'm really excited to see is when they get the room that we redid down there, and they've turned it into like a soundproof room, so they can do broadcasts from down in there, and they can have a green screen if they wanted, and things like that, so kids will learn a lot of skills that would lead to media-related positions or whatever the case may be, so, a lot of cool things.
absolutely.
My question, concern, I guess, would be if we would allow an 8th grade course to count for graduation, well then we keep adding 8th grade classes that count for graduation, and what are the ramifications of that?
I don't think there are any ramifications. I mean, when we had students take geometry, that was an 8th grade course that counted as, as it met the
So we've already
requirements.
done this.
Algebra, yep, we could do Algebra 1 for anyone who takes it, we could do that.
But then they don't have to take 3 classes or 2 classes at the high school if they wanted to, theoretically?
Theoretically, but most students do not. If they take Algebra 1 as an 8th grader, they usually end up taking 3 years. And the other thing is, there are some things that we could put in the handbook or that just say, if this is like if we would say, well, we're gonna start Algebra 1, we're going to make that a high school credit. However, and in high school, you still have to take 3 years on top of that. So you could put some other
Right, you
pieces in
technically
place.
don't get our credit for taking an 8th grade class. You just advance yourself to allow yourself to take 3 additional classes that isn't Algebra 1.
You
So
still need
you
the
don't
260.
get graduation credit for that Algebra 1 class that you took in 8th grade.
Just
No.
puts you on a path to come to high school and take
Right.
geometry.
So I just so everybody understands
But
that.
personal
Yes.
finance would have to give them
But
credit, wouldn't
personal
it?
finance
Right.
will have to give them credit, yes.
Yeah,
And we could, if we wanted to, we could give Algebra 1 credit, we just
But we're
haven't
not.
started. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And you'd have to make sure that the middle school teacher had the certification to teach 9-12.
And which most of them do, the big part that you would just have to make is that they're teaching the standards. But I will tell you, those middle school teachers meet with our high school teachers that teach the algebra just to make sure that they're covering exactly the priority standards that they need to cover, so. Yep, okay, the other thing that, I want you to know is that when we add this additional requirement, we are now up to 160 credits of the 260 credit requirements that are out of students' control. So with these 160 credits, students don't have a choice, they have to take them and they have to pass them. That leaves them 100 credits, 20 classes of their own choosing. So that is when we talk career pathways, when we talk career courses, that does start to limit them. And the more that the state comes out and tells us that you have to add this requirement or that requirement, that just lessens what our students have choices and what they are able to explore and how deep they're able to explore that area. So, as a curriculum person, as someone who wants students to be able to explore or to go deeply in the career pathway, that does provide me some heartburn. Yes, so that is just something to know. So what we will do is, you see that change, we will then shift and make the same adjustment to the regulation. So we will now have G will adjust, and then we will have an H as well, where we will add the computer science. On page 2 of the regulation, the last part that I want to talk about, and this is something that I overlooked and should have been adjusted a while ago, is that Part 3 assessment. We are removing the assessment section of the graduation requirements because we no longer have NISA at the high school. We currently utilize the ACT as the assessment. And I will tell you, the purpose of the ACT is completely different, and it's not directly aligned to the state standards for grades 9 through 12, so I would have a hard time looking at our students saying you have to pass the ACT. You have to be proficient in order to graduate, because that's not the purpose of the ACT assessment. So I would ask that that be completely removed from this policy. Any questions about those adjustments?
Does that just take C out, not D?
Yep, that just takes C out, not D, because, well, what would happen is that number 4 would just become 3, because we still have certificate of attendance, participation in high school graduation. So that would still be there.
Well,
No,
This
I mean,
is,
D
they're
is
not voting on this, right?
no, they are
That's
not.
the proficiency levels remain enrolled.
What?
Does D come out?
Oh, any student who's not met the, is that what you're talking
You
about?
said
Yeah.
that 3 was coming out. Is A, B, C, and D under
Yes,
3 all coming
yes.
out? The entire
Okay,
section
all
3 is
right,
being
okay.
removed?
Yes, yeah, sorry, I was wondering what, I thought you were saying number
Okay.
4 was D.
No. Uh-uh.
Sorry. So all of 3, A, B, C, D will come out.
Okay.
Okay, so there might be a few other adjustments that we will make, and that's why we're gonna hold off and do first reading in December, so that we can look at those other adjustments. And as we have conversations about academics, about our classifications, designations, everything that is embargoed at this point in time, we will then continue to, this is a policy we may just want to keep as not first read yet, so that if we need to make any other adjustments, we can do so. Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Sorry.
Okay, I think I'm up next, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Jackie and Jason have shared with our administrative team the AQuest information for this year that is embargoed still, so I can't talk to you about this year's results, but we felt it was important to go back and look at some of the key things that the state is, in essence, grading schools on. The high school area, or level schools on, and that's the ACT, the graduation rate, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about grading and how I kind of see some things with that that might have some impact on the graduation rate and some of that. So I'm not going to read this all to you, and I'm sorry that, I guess, you get this from me and you haven't had a chance to look at it, but there are some things I just want to go through with you with and kind of make some explanations. What you have in front of you, let's start with ACT. This is the last 5 years of our high school ACT scores. This is directly off the state's website. I don't know, 2014, 15, 15, 16, it just says not available, but we didn't do ACT then, okay.
That would
makes
have
sense.
been NISA.
That would have made sense.
Yep.
And then COVID in 1920. So you can see, what I'd like to point out on those graphs is that we've shown, the high school has shown over the last 5 years, improvement. We've had consistent improvement that's occurred in the area of science, starting in 16-17 with a proficient score of 44% of our kids proficient, to 2020-21, 57% of our students showing proficiency in science. We've seen consistent performance in the ACT English proficiency, 51 to 53%, except in 2017-18, when for some reason we dropped to 41% proficiency. And we've seen improvement in math from the 48 to 50th percentile proficiency in 16-17 to 18-19, but a drop to 45% proficiency in 2021. Our goal for the high school, folks, has been that we finish at the 50th percentile or higher on our ACT scores. And so you can see in the year 2018-19, all three of our scores in ELL, which is English, language arts, math, and science, we were at the 50th percentile or higher in those areas. Some of the things we do and we have been doing to improve our ACT scores: every student at the high school has access to the John Baylor test prep program, where they are able to have a login and a code and work independently through all the John Baylor testing materials that are there. We also have our English teachers using that exclusively within their English classrooms. We've made school improvement goals to improve our English scores and especially our writing scores. And we spend time in classes giving kids chances to work on ACT prep type questions. We'll prepare them through practice to do a better job on the ACT. Our science department, as we get closer to the ACT test, which is in the spring of the year, starting in January, every day in our science classrooms, the science teachers pose either a bell ringer or an exit ticket that has a connection to an ACT type science question to give them practice on that. So they're having that language, that kind of thing in front of them as they get closer and prepared for the ACT in March typically. The math department follows suit. They infuse questions into their math curriculum that are ACT type questions. They also provide a review. As we get closer to March, the math teachers will take, in every math class, they'll take, the juniors have, they'll take and they'll spend time reviewing. If the junior's in a pre-calc and trig class, they'll go back and they'll review some algebra. They'll go back and review some geometry. They'll obviously be working on pre-calc and trig. They'll even give them some examples of some calculus that they would have as a senior to get them provided a kind of review as we get closer to that test. For our kids that are resource students, I've seen personally in IEP meetings where our resource teachers take a lot of time and effort to get those kids that need extra supports, the supports they need, whether it's extended time or whether it's a reader of the ACT test, to give those kids the best opportunity to be successful. We set goals with our students similar to what we do with our MAP testing, where the kids take the pre-ACT as sophomores, and they get the pre-ACT scores back, which then gives them an estimate of your pre-ACT score is this, and that would equate to an ACT score of this, a projection. And a lot of times kids want to improve that, and we have our teachers work with our students to set a goal and what are the things that they need to improve on to reach that goal. So we do some goal setting with our kids, which for high school kids is a big deal. I'll be honest, sometimes the ACT is, students, one of the questions they ask is this graded? And when they hear it's not graded, we work with them on giving their best effort. It's something that's still very important that you do. And so setting those goals and having our teachers work with the kids on, this is what your pre-ACT score was, this is what it says your estimate for your ACT score will be. If you want to have a higher score, here's some things we can work on in class, or you can work on your own, or through John Baylor to improve those scores. And we get some good buy-in from a lot of our kids on that.
Hey, Jason, that's kind of a great segue. I'm gonna interrupt you just because I have a question I don't wanna forget.
Okay.
But like I said, it's a great segue, because I have a question about, so many of our colleges no longer rely on the ACT for college admission
Right.
requirements.
Right.
So I guess, do you see that playing a part in maybe kids becoming a little,
Yes,
okay.
to be honest with you, yes.
But the state
Although-
requires it, so the state's
The
gonna have to
state-
change.
The legislature is going to.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm talking about student
Right.
outreach.
Their buy-in.
You know what I
It's,
mean, when they know that their college admission isn't, you know, relying on, you know, it's not reliant on that
The
anymore.
the ACT, the kids do realize though that the ACT is mostly being used at this point to earn certain
Scholarships,
scholarships. And certain levels of regents and
And,
some of those kinds of things.
and so again, are we, not we, but you know what I'm talking about, are we catering to that segment of the kids that care about that are going for that? Or, you know what I'm trying to get out there. I just
Your
was-
question is a great question, and yes, we do see that, especially when after COVID, it was, if you wanna go, you're gonna get accepted, and there's been kids are smart, and they
Yeah.
understand that, and there's been a less of a,
I mean, you see,
it's almost
you
like
see
it was
some,
when I was in high school,
Right.
Lisa, to be honest with you, you took the ACT
One
once, you got a
time, right?
grade, you checked it off, and you were
yeah,
good, it's kind of reverts back to that.
Yeah.
But we still want our kids to take it
Sure.
serious and do a good job on it. And we do try to stress to them that if you do well, there's gonna be some doors maybe open up to you that wouldn't be available if you don't work hard and try your best at it.
I was just wondering, like, how do you combat that apathy, I guess? You know, I mean, I know you can't wave a magic wand, but,
Now,
Yeah.
Students question if it's something is graded a lot. And if it's not, then we still have to try to get them to do their best.
And I think
Yeah.
the other thing
That's life.
that, you know, I read an article just yesterday about testing. And when you start at grade 3, actually we start kindergarten, because we have to start testing for the Reading Improvement Act. So we start testing fall of kindergarten. These students see a test 3 times throughout the year, a standardized assessment. Whether it's an adaptive assessment to help us, you know, guide us, whether it's a state test. They see that starting in kindergarten for 3 times out of the year until their junior year, the end of their junior year. That's a lot of testing. And so the buy-in to testing decreases, especially once they start getting older. But even, I will tell you, even as kindergartners, first, second graders, there are kids that just click through everything and that's all they do. Because they want to be done, they don't see the purpose of it, they don't see the value of it, it isn't heart.
This goal-setting idea really stemmed from what we saw kids responding to MAP testing. We would get their MAP scores from the first time they took it, and then we would work with them on, hey, it's the spring of the year, we're gonna take MAP again, let's set a new goal, let's improve by 5 points. And they're still, our kids are hard workers, and they still value that, they don't feel entitled, they know that if they work hard, better things will happen. And they still, a lot of them really do a good job with that. They'll set a goal and they'll reach it, and we just use the same thing with the ACT. We have some that don't, but by and large, a lot do. The last bullet there, the last paragraph, just says, I want you to know we emphasize it. We talk about it with our kids. We make sure we have breakfast available that day. We feed them a snack during the test. We want to make sure that they know that we value what they're doing, and we're going to give them the best opportunity to do well on it. So,
Could you, I think it's important that maybe we talk about what proficient means. Because I think a lot of times I see the word proficient and I think they just barely made it, but I don't think that's what the word proficient means. What does it, can you compare it to
Math and
something?
science. And it's determined, so math has a proficiency level, science does, and ELA does. Math and science are both 18. You have to have an 18 or higher on that assessment. And I think ELA is, I thought ELA was lower. ELA is either 17 or 18. It is that you have to,
out of what?
36. So out of on their score, so your score has to be an 18 or higher and it was 18 to 22 is meets, and 23 and above is exceeds on the, so the
But it's a
interesting
test
thing.
designed to send people to college.
Yes, and
Yes.
I was gonna say, and ACT would take a step further and say, if you're proficient, your chances of earning A's and B's in college are pretty locked in. You're gonna do well in college if you can be above proficiency level.
Because that's the purpose of ACT.
Okay. I think that's important when people look at these,
Yeah.
that,
Yes, and I can get you the exact.
Yeah, I wish I would've brought that,
Proficiency
'cause
level.
I'm just.
you're right, Doris. There's a prediction put out by ACT that if your grade, your points are in a certain range, when you go to college, you're going to do well. You're well prepared, you're gonna be successful in those courses. I just didn't bring it.
Yeah,
It's,
It seems to me ACT has just come up with a way to keep themselves in business. Since the college people are not taking it, so now all the high school, we've convinced high school people to take it. Interesting.
any questions for me on what I've proposed to you for ACT? I guess some good things that I'd like to point out is, other than a year or two, we've shown steady overall progress, and we keep striving to our goal of being 50% proficient or higher. And I'm really pleased with what we've done with our science, going from 44 to 57. A lot of that is problem solving, and our science teachers have embraced that and working with our kids on how to solve problems and how to analyze things and come up with a solution, which is good thinking on any level. And it's not just for the ACT, but those are kinds of thinking that'll help you with a lot of different things. So,
When I was in school and I did C, I was not proficient. I was, well, not trying, not studying, and to us, proficient was, oh, you got an A, you're very proficient at it. Seems like we kind of dumbed down the language to make people feel better about their ACT scores, so. Anyway, I just wanted everybody to know I got C. So,
the next thing I'd like, again, part of the A-Quest, which is gonna be an evaluation of schools, is gonna be our graduation rate. And so what I've provided is the last 5 years of our state graduation rate in our district. Now, because our district only has one high school, our district percentage is the same as our high school. If we were in a district where there were 3 high schools, that would be a different number, but that's how that's figured. You can see we've been fairly close except for 2021, where the state percent was 87.56, and our high school dropped to 83.03. Whereas all those other years, in fact, we were ahead of the state average percent in 2020. We had a year where we didn't. Also, the state grades us on our 7-year graduation rate, and you can see I've included there. So in 2018, the state percent of graduation was 92 or 90, almost 93%. We were at 91.46. Now, we have students, folks, that don't graduate in 4 years. Sometimes kids just need a longer time. They are not successful their freshman year. Just a lot of different factors they can be faced with. They remain in school, and we work to help them get finished. There's a variety of things we do. We sometimes will have those students attend our alternative school so they can work on Odysseyware and finish up, because those kids typically want to finish as fast as they can after that 4 years. We enroll them in work-based learning opportunities where they can earn work-based learning credits. We offer them online courses through our Odysseyware program. We offer summer school, or we try to be creative and come up with different ideas and plans on how to get this student who still wants to get that diploma, isn't wanting to drop out after 4 years, wants to earn that. How can we do that and get to that 260 credits that they need? And I want you to know we work hard at that. It's not, I don't feel like if a kid doesn't make it in 4 years, we're just done. We're gonna keep working with them as long as we need to help them be successful. We also have kids that don't graduate, they go across the graduation ceremony, but they receive a certificate of attendance. Those tend to be students that are with us then till the age of 21. When they turn 21, then they have enough credits earned and they get a diploma. And so that's why the 7-year comes into play for some of those kids. So I think that's important, you know, that we have kids that don't make it after 4 years. We have kids that graduate in 5 years. We have kids that don't make it in May, but get work-based learning credits and then can be done in August, and we call them an August grad. We have kids that don't get done in May, work this summer, have to come back for a few classes in the fall, and are done at that following midterm. So I did not include the 5-year graduation rates and the 6-year graduation rates, because those aren't on AQuest. The 4-year graduation rate and the 7-year graduation rate are gonna show up on the AQuest report as to how our high school's graded, okay? We have high expectations. We have 260 credits needed to graduate. We spent time together last year talking about that, where we're one of the highest ones that we could find in the area. I sat in front of you and said, I think that we don't want to lower our expectations, but I'll be honest, and we've had this conversation. The more state mandates that the state gives us and the more classes we make kids take and pass before they graduate, I think that's a concern, is where we're at. And I think if the playing field keeps changing on us, I sat here in front of you and told you 260 was a good number, and I value that, and I think our community would feel that we need to expect high expectations for our students. But this is me speaking, when the playing field changes and we get told these things have to be done, and it changes how we do things, I think that needs to be continued to be looked at.
Can I jump in here just
Yeah.
a little bit? There's a whole lot of reasons why we have this discussion tonight, and it's a two-part discussion, and I want to do some summing up when Mr. Suter's done with his presentation. But I think that point right there is something that needs to be reiterated, emphasized, reported in the newspaper, said on the radio, broadcast loud and wide. And that is that in so many different times, in different discussions, we are compared to other schools in the state, whether they're close to us or far away from us. And the state continues to change the rules of the game by mandating things like this, like the computer science course, like what we teach, and what needs to be done in our in our schools overall. And a lot of those mandates come from people who have no clue about what happens in the school. They're not practitioners of education. They've gone through school. They've probably graduated very highly in their classes, whatever the case may be, but they don't have an idea of what happens in the school on a day-to-day basis. And they mandate things that then in turn impact what happens at a school, and then they make comparisons across the board as to what schools are doing this really well and what schools aren't, without understanding all the dynamics that are involved. And so I think, as Jason makes that comment, I think it's very important to understand that anybody can throw a comparison out there, but what really happens in the dynamics of the school, and what their demographics are within the school makes a big difference on the outcome. So there's some other things I want to say.
And I think that anytime like this computer science class is gonna be mandated, for most of our kids, they'll take that, whatever we come up with the class, whether it's an 8th grade class or whether it's a high school class, a lot of our kids will take it and be successful, just have to not take as many electives, but there'll be some kids that won't be successful in it. And then that has an impact on our graduation rate, you know, and so that's part of that equation is we're gonna get great on our graduation rate, we keep getting classes added that some of our kids won't be successful at.
And these state percentages on graduation rate does not take into account credit hour requirements, right?
No.
So it doesn't matter if we're 260 and another school next door is 230, it's the same percentage.
It's whatever.
Or whatever the percentage is, it doesn't take into account what that number is.
Right.
But I think
It
we
also-
also,
So we're not being compared apples to apples,
Right,
and never will be.
right.
It also, and I don't know if you were going to hit on this point, but it also doesn't take into account how many students we have that stay till they're 21.
Right.
And we provide an awesome life skills program for them. Our ACP program is amazing. And they do some awesome things after they walk to continue to make sure that their transition, when they reach the age of 21, is successful. And so that they have those doors open, because we have a large number of students that choose, that's part of their IEP goal, and so that does affect, yeah, they graduate, but they're part of that 7-year graduation rate. They are not part of that 4-year graduation rate, because they receive a certificate of participation, not a diploma. So I think we have some amazing programs here, and that's the part, is the numbers don't always reflect the amazing programs and the amazing things that happen in our buildings and in our classrooms. So that's.
Jason, I think on this same note here, have you heard other schools in the state discuss, with the addition of the computer science, are they adjusting requirements? Are they, what's kind of the talk out there, I guess?
I've not heard any.
I would say that twofold. One, how they're addressing it like we talked about, that's one discussion, because some schools are talking about doing exactly what we're doing with an 8th grade class and putting it in that way. And other people are talking about online and so forth. But then others are also talking about the fact that as we continue to be mandated these course requirements, and that chips away at what kids want to do, do we need to adjust our graduation requirements? So there are other schools talking about it.
I think that the other point too, the unfortunate thing that, with the increase in the mandated class, I guess you would say, that decreases the amount of electives. We had a discussion, what was it, 2 years ago, on some of the cool science classes they were wanting to add, but we just couldn't do it. So that just takes out those opportunities for those kids that maybe are looking to go down science, or even some of those, were, even though they were science, but they were more, career-related courses, but now that completely cuts that out of a kid that wants to go in that direction.
Well, exactly, and I think, one of the things we've had very healthy discussions about is a more career, CTEs, career technical education based programs within our school. But the more that we get these mandates, the less opportunity we have to take kids down that road, because they have to do this.
And even myself, coming from a smaller school than Beatrice, I would say we had more electives choices, there than Beatrice Public Schools has. More along the career, specifically ag side of things, which again, we're still in a rural community. There's still a large agriculture background in this community, and we just don't have a lot of that opportunity. But to add that, we would have to.
I did bring this, I asked we had a Trailblazer Conference principal meeting last month, and I did ask other schools, what are you doing for this computer science? And I'll be honest, we were kind of ahead of other groups as far as thinking through what the plans would be. Some schools have a class that they already offer in their high school that they'll just make all kids take. Some were looking at 8th grade, some looking at, Ralston, I think, was looking at an online class that kids would take. So they're just trying to figure out what class that'll be at this point.
Somewhat off topic, but a lot of what I've heard, the positives of this new conference goes way beyond athletics. Because so many times have I heard administrators talk about, all the way down to middle school, grade school level, having that opportunity to have those discussions with their peers, just within that conference.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge, or it's been very positive.
And with the River Cities Conference, we had a meeting, but it was with priests and headmasters and people that aren't really doing the same job. So, okay, last one I want to talk to you about is grading. We just want to keep continuing to look at our grading systems at the high school. This is mostly just for your information. The grading scale at the top, the 93 to 100, 86, 92, that's the scale, the grading scale we use for the majority of our courses at the high school. Okay? We also teach dual credit classes or some college level classes, and in those dual credit classes, we follow the college grading scale, which goes down to a 90 to 100 an A and down to 59 or below an F. So we have 2 different grading scales going on depending on what kinds of courses we have. Eric, again, the Trailblazer Conference principal group met, and we are asking ourselves, what are other schools using for grading? There's everything from, this would be considered a 5-point system, where there's 5 different ranges, up to a 12-point system, and we're going to continue to look at those grading systems within our conference and also within area schools And one of my goals for the year is to continue to look at that and see if we need to make some adjustments to how we grade our students. And if that has any impact on any of our graduation rate and that kind of thing also. I also think that by doing this and looking at more in depth of our grading system, and maybe this is what we keep, but at least we need to look at it and see if there needs to be some adjustments. It may answer some questions we've had raised recently about our valedictorians and honor grads and what percentage of those kids earn those honors in the size of their class, the percentage of kids that are able to earn those different things. And I don't know if any of you have had concerns or questions about that, but I know that's something that Jason and I and Dr. Nielsen have talked about is, for example, last year we had a class of 132, we had 9 kids that were 4.0s. And that fluctuates. Some years we'll have 3 or 4, some years we have about that many. So I think it just raises some questions as to, are we providing a rigorous curriculum? Should there be more separation? Should we just recognize those kids that get that 4.0? And then those honor grads are the 3.5 grade point average kids. So,
I think we should go back to where you had to be in band to get a 4.0, to be the valedictorian. I kid you not, that's when you were in high school,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. And I guess what I'm saying here with grading, I don't want, I told Jason this, I don't want the front page of the paper saying Beatrice High changing grading system. We're not. We're looking at just different options and how those different things may have an impact on our students, may have an impact on what our graduation looks like, how we recognize kids and that sort of thing. Should there be a weighted scale? Should there be, the reason we have not done a weighted scale for our college classes is because they use a different grading scale. Those kids that take dual credit classes, some would say they should, if they get an A in a dual credit class, they should get a higher than a 4.0. But we also have said, but they're using a different grading scale. So it's not apples to apples. And so there are schools that do that, and we can look at that and look into see what that would look like and how that would have an impact on our kids. So any questions on the 3 things I've kind of wanted to go through with you tonight? I took a lot more time than I was allocated, and I appreciate that, but I know you were ready to
Discussion.
move on.
You always bring hard stuff.
I know.
That's good.
I'm gonna sum up a lot of what Jason presented and kind of explain why we're having this discussion, because there's multiple reasons. Number one, academics are our top priority, and I know we have a lot of other things that we talk about over the course of a year and at different times of the year, and that's because that's how the year sets itself up. Academics will always be our top priority, and we need to continue to have that discussion. So part of what brought this topic to you is the fact that we need to be thinking about these things. The computer science requirement brought part of this discussion to you tonight as well. But I think the other thing is that in the past couple of years, we have not had as much academic discussion because we've been talking a lot about the pandemic. And not that meant that academics were not important, but it was a different delivery system of those academics that we had to focus on. How do we educate kids when they're at home for 4 months of the year and then transitioning back in, and we're living under all these rules and regulations that we don't necessarily like, but we had to do. So that's part of it. As we transition into what in November will be the state reporting AQuest system, all those reports coming out, we want to start that discussion with you now in October so we have a chance to tell our story. Tell our story of what is happening, and specifically in these 3 areas. Now there's a whole bunch more to talk about, and it will come out in November as the AQuest results are released, but we can't talk about that right now because it's embargoed, and that means that the state's still working on making sure all that's accurate and everything else. And so this is really a 2-part discussion. We talk about it tonight, we talk about these things. You can take this home, read through it. You may have more questions that come to mind. We're gonna revisit this topic again in November about academics, so you have a chance to write up questions that may come to mind about these things, or ask us questions if you feel, you know, send us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, because we wanna have that rich discussion with you like we've had tonight. So that's a few of the reasons why we have this on the agenda tonight, and why we've asked Mr. Suter to put this together in a way that he could explain it to you about what does take place.
Last thing I would say is on these percentages, we've always, the board has always challenged the high school, since I've been principal, to be above the state. And I think, I just want you to know that we're gonna always shoot for that as a goal, to be above whatever the state average is. And so our graduation rate dropped below the state this year, and we're gonna do what we can to try to improve that, get that back up to where your expectations would be, so. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, so being passed around is we're just gonna move on to 23-24 calendar. This is a draft calendar. I should have written draft on it, I did not. But this is a draft calendar at this point in time, and we just wanted to bring that to you. So as you look at the calendar, one of the things that you will note is that it looks very similar to our current year, calendar. There is one shift, and it falls at the end of second semester. And it's about when we release school and our snow days that are built in. So in May, you notice that our last day is the 23rd, but that's with 2 snow days built into the calendar. If you take those 2 days off, you get out the 21st, that Tuesday, as a half day. If we adjusted, so I had to add a few extra days here and there, because here's the deal, and with those 2 days, if we push that to Wednesday, the 22nd being our last day, there could be a possibility, if we didn't use any snow days, that Monday the 20th would be our last half day. Trying to get students and trying to get parents to send their students for Monday being a half day it's a little bit difficult, it's challenging. So the other thing is, if we did it on the 21st, that Tuesday is our last half day, or last day with 2 snow days built in, yes, Friday the 17th could potentially, but what happens if we use 1 snow day? Well, then again, we're going back to that Monday. So by keeping it as that Thursday with the 2 snow days built in, it allows us a little bit more flexibility, and we don't have to worry about that Monday being that half day. So that is what we looked at with the 2 half days, and how we then adjusted a few different things is, you will also notice a difference between February has the 16th and the 19th are 2 days that are no students, no staff. What we did was, we usually have a professional development day in February, because you have a January professional development day. February is 6 weeks later, we pushed that one to April 26th. So we switched that, and we switched that for a couple of reasons. So one, it is farther away from that January 3rd, so it provides more time for that implementation. So when staff have those pieces, they have more time to implement it and then discuss the results on the 26th. It also, most of our assessments will be wrapped up at that point in time, so we will have, or should have, our data back, which will allow us to have discussions about our assessment data and also help with the transitions to the following year to figure out still where are the gaps and help the future teachers move and address those gaps in August. It also continues to allow for those transition meetings that occur between grade levels, so your PK to K, your K to 1, just transition meetings that occur to help that teacher look at the next year. So that is one of the biggest adjustments that we made on this calendar. Otherwise, everything is very similar. Now, as we look at 23, 24, we're also starting to look at 24, 25, because we know that that's going to be upon us sooner than we think. One of the things that we're looking at with 24, 25 is we will have PK through 5 in one facility. That's going to require us to start looking at things differently. It's going to require us to start looking at the start and end times of every day and of the buildings to be spread out and strategically placed, because we know traffic is one of those areas that we have to look at. So we are looking at those pieces. We're also looking at what research base says about your brain, to make sure that we have those pieces in place as well. The other piece that we are looking at is we are looking at PLC, or PLC structure, and for 24, 25, and we are looking at that in the sense of, do we shift? Do we look at some different opportunities to allow our teachers to collaborate in different structures, different time structures? So some ideas that we are considering might be an all-day collaboration session every month. It might also be decreasing the time that we allow for that dismissal, because we don't have to worry about teachers traveling. So that would be another thing that we could do, is look at that, decrease the dismissal time, and push it more towards that 3 o'clock dismissal time, and then 3 o'clock to 3:45, 2:45 to 3:45 could be PLC time. We're also looking at that half-day, maybe another option could be a half-day collaborating session every month as well. So there's a lot of different things that we are looking at this point in time, and just trying to look forward at really that 24, 25, and addressing some of those other pieces, because we know we will have some unique things happening at that in that year, and having to really shift some components so we can make sure that we look at our start and stop times, and make sure that that traffic flow happens, make sure busing occurs, and busing is able to happen kind of seamlessly, and that our teachers are still able to collaborate and still able to work together. And because we know curriculum, assessment, instruction, those things are always topics of conversation. So in future discussions, we will bring back examples of 2020, 24, 25 calendars. But at this point in time, this is the 23, 24 calendar, which is in front of you, and I will take any questions that you may have.
So I'm sure, we'll go ahead first. So I'm sure I can probably answer this question, but is there any way to manipulate this to end on a Friday in May? So that way you're not coming back after the weekend, for example. So let's just say no snow days. Do you take one day of March and the one either the, maybe the Monday after Easter, and bring those back out and say, okay, then we're gonna be done at that time? Or even because of where Christmas falls on a Monday, can you gain back those? I'm just asking the question, does it?
Absolutely, you could do that.
You probably couldn't take them out of December though, right?
You could take probably one out of December, so you could take that 21st. You could look at taking the 22nd before Thanksgiving. I know that when we have surveyed teachers, they have enjoyed having that 22nd. Just because, especially if my family is coming and I have to host,
Right.
It's nice to have time to do that. We could take,
But why would that help this second semester?
because what it would do is it would just give you another day back. You are getting to that 177.
But then that makes the semester longer, doesn't it?
It might, because currently you have 87.5 days first semester and 89.5 days second semester. You're gonna have an imbalance at some point. You try to get your calendar as balanced as possible. But yeah, what we would have to do is we'd have to find 3.5 days, basically 4 days, to take off of this calendar to push that up. Because again, if we moved that, the part that we would have to look at is if we moved that, we have 2 snow days built in. So that's the biggest thing. So if we moved even the last day, the red, up to the 21st, if we use one snow day, you're coming back on Monday, the 20th is your last day. So that's the part when you have those snow days built in, you kind of have to adjust for that or look at that part. The other thing is
Graduation.
graduation is on the 19th on this day, on this calendar as well. And I will tell you, we did receive feedback, and I have heard from parents that, mothers in particular, that have enjoyed not necessarily sharing their day, not that they don't love it and that it's not a great accomplishment, but they have enjoyed having their Mother's Day to themselves and then celebrating their child the following weekend. So that is one of the other things that, you know, yes, there are school districts that have kids out before graduation occurs. So that is another option that we could look at, is we could say, okay, how do we get our dismissal being the 17th with 2 snow days built in? And then graduation still occurring on the 19th.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know how Mr. Suter feels about that one, but that is an
You
option.
know what, I'll do whatever you ask me to do.
I know, yep.
It would be a problem getting underclassmen to come back, but we really don't do that. I mean, the band, it would be fine, we could do it.
Uh-huh.
Getting them back for,
If they're out of
After.
school, saying, okay, band, you have to report and play
Oh,
at
gotcha, yeah.
graduation, that kind of thing.
and if we have more than 2 snow days, does that continue to push us out?
No, we
necessarily?
are over with instructional hours, we are over. We're over by at least 30
Because, yeah, if you had to
instructional
push hours, then we're getting
Yeah.
past Memorial Day. then.
Yeah.
With the number of days that we have in, without the snow days, we're over by at least 30 instructional hours. So we have plenty of time built in for some of those fluctuations if we end up with 3 snow days. Now, if we end up with 2 weeks out because of something major, well, that's a different story.
Right.
And we'll be looking at different things and, yeah, but that may also, we write a waiver to the state because if something dramatic like that would happen, we can write a waiver and get it waived.
But haven't we in the past cut out a day over Easter or even spring break? Didn't we do that
Yeah,
a couple years ago?
Those are options too,
And
that if
something
all of a
popped up where it was
sudden,
gonna put us over, so we said, okay, let's go to school this day and then.
Yeah.
And it
You have
didn't
to be
really,
really careful about that, though.
no, I know, but it didn't affect, I mean, it wasn't a huge issue, I don't think.
You asked the teacher, and
Yeah,
I
right.
explained tickets.
You sit on negotiations.
Can I ask, I don't know where are the other 3 professional development days? Am I not looking at it right? Looks like there's 6, but is that
remember you have,
9? Where do we get the 3 from the?
January 3rd, April 26th,
so you
October
also
16th.
have every,
You can't have
PT conferences as well.
That would be 2. 2 days.
2, what do you mean?
When they
And
work
then
4
here's the deal.
hours for-
So, okay, you have,
Oh, those count
August.
as professional development day,
Yeah.
the Friday
well, they
after.
aren't professional, they just count as staff days.
The hours they work, so
The
they
hours.
work 2 evenings, so that's at 8 hours.
Oh,
so
okay,
that's
all right.
And then
Okay.
the other thing is the 10th, August 10th and May 23rd are half days. So students go half day, the teachers are the other
okay.
half day, so there's your
Okay.
9.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, because, you know, I don't have anybody in school anymore. Martin Luther King Day, did we observe that this year?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
other years we have not. I know
Yeah,
we have
last
changed
year
it.
was our first year.
Okay,
that we
President's
had
Day
that.
then? We've not observed that in the past, so
Well-
we've got President's Day off.
And President's Day, what we've done is usually it's been professional development that day.
Okay, but it's a day off, it's not professional development.
So that's what I switched, is that February 19th, I pushed it to April 26th because,
And then 3 days off in March, typically that's not been the
Spring
case
break.
either.
we have 2 or 3 off in March.
It's usually been
This year.
2.
It's usually been, 2, I think this year it's 3,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So this is first round of looking at this. I am also going to send it out to staff members for their feedback because they have not seen it either, so I will be sending it out to them, after tonight.
You
Just-
didn't have any staff members sitting on the calendar, working on the calendar?
No, I get them feedback and then I bring that to the piece too. That's why this is just a draft. We probably will not look at approving this until January timeframe. So I just wanted to get it out there to say this is just first,
I just know
just
other
start
years,
looking at it.
there's been staff, we had like a committee that actually worked on the calendar, so I was just curious if there was not
Yeah, and we haven't had a committee.
for, it's probably several years. I was just
Yeah.
curious
Yep.
how it was being handled.
Yeah, because we haven't made any dramatic changes to the calendar, and we put it out there and we tend to get similar feedback, and that's the thing. Now, I will tell you, when we make adjustments to the 24-25, that will definitely look at, especially if we're looking at that teacher collaboration time, that I will bring together a committee of teachers just to start helping to look at different ideas and different ways to provide them. Yep.
I thought it was interesting that they all seem to think that bringing that person for a whole day seemed to be very valuable. Should we look at more of those whole day experiences? I thought that Missy seemed to think it was very positive. Teachers seemed to think it was very positive. Should we be looking at those rather than so many of the half days or just a few days? I don't know. And maybe you're thinking about that for later on, but I thought that was, seems like that's been, I mean, we can't do that can't do that 9 times a year, because I'm guessing these people didn't come for free.
No.
Correct.
No.
But there's plenty of ideas that they give us that would be nice to have days and time to build those ideas.
I thought that was an interesting concept of watching the video and then discussing and then coming back together after they applied it in the classroom.
Well, and that's what they use their Wednesdays for, which is their PLC time, the Wednesday mornings. So, I mean, that's the thing is, it is nice to have that time for teachers to talk. It's just, what is the structure? What does that time structure look like? Because I will tell you, we had a presenter in the district today, and again, we run into the issue of our elementary needs time to work on their curriculum. We started doing that, and then we had it going, and then COVID hit, so we took a break. We've got to get back on track with that curriculum piece, because we have new standards in ELA, new standards in math that we've got to make sure we go through and align all of our resources to, and figure out what assessments do we have in place. So we had a presenter today, and the part I struggle with is we don't have subs. And so, I don't think.
But wouldn't it work better to not have school at all?
Yeah, that could be an option too. However, this presenter is meeting with 3, 4, 5 today, and then he will meet with K1, 2 tomorrow. So I think time is always, and it is nice to have a smaller group to work with, because I can get a lot more done. The discussions, the work that these groups got done today was amazing. And it was fun to see them, because they really are prioritizing their standards and really figuring out that the textbook is not necessarily the curriculum. And really saying, okay, so if we're teaching main idea, how are we going to assess main idea? What's our common formative assessment? When are we going to give it? When are we going to discuss it? And figure out which kids have it, which kids don't. What are we going to change instructionally to then help those students that don't have it move forward? I will tell you, we talked about rich discussions earlier, but it was awesome. It was fun to sit in there and see just their energy and enthusiasm, because they're starting to see what they need to do in order to help push students forward and to help make sure that we are meeting standards and meeting the proficiency level that the standard brings about.
Do you know, it just seems to me that it would make much more sense to focus all day on curriculum rather than an hour and a half every week, because I don't even think you can get into an in-depth discussion in an hour and a half. I just don't think that you can, that they've been teaching all day long.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
you go into that, and it takes a while to come down from having had kids. So, I just don't think that they're as effective as they could be. I don't think it's friendly to the community and people who have kids in elementary to try to figure out how to get their kid. Blast has taken a lot of that away, but if you go past any of the schools between 2 o'clock and 3:30, cars are lined up like crazy. But for these people to have to try to figure out, do I take off work? Do I have somebody who can come get my kids? And what do I do for childcare? I just do not think it's friendly. It's probably the #1 complaint that I hear from parents.
But it's just as difficult, I would think, to find daycare all day long, when it's just sporadic throughout the year.
But I think it'd be easier to do it once a month, because you can, if you've got time off, you can take time off, or if your spouse, or,
It's hard.
I'd rather find it for one day rather than 4 times a month. But it is the #1 complaint I get.
And so that is why we will be looking at that when we shift, because we know that, the nice thing is we have all of our teachers in one building. All of our middle school teachers are there, all of our high school teachers are there, and all of our PK through 5 teachers are there. I had a teacher look and say, it'll be so awesome when I can go and get your binder off your shelf. Because this was a Paddock Lane teacher looking at Stoddard teacher saying, it'll be so awesome when I can just walk into your classroom each and every day to collaborate. And that's the thing, is teacher collaboration happens all the time. And so what is our structure? I absolutely think that we need to reevaluate our structure and look at that time piece
And the other
and see
thing
what
is,
options we have.
then you can stop pulling teachers out of classrooms and worrying about getting subs, because you see that, and I think that's the success that Missy was talking about. They do not have preschool on Wednesdays, so they can totally focus on PLCs
Yep.
on that day.
On every Wednesday
And,
they
and,
can.
parents seem to be able to deal with that.
I think, just my 2 cents, it's probably not worth one, but just my 2 cents is, I agree. I think everything that you've said is exactly, I agree with it 100%. And I think it's another reason why one building will facilitate things so much easier. This is just another one of those pieces where it will help. And there are gonna be so many changes that we have to look at going into that year. Jackie talked a little bit about the start and end times of schools. That'll be one thing, but there will be a ton of things that we have to look at. And making all those changes at that time, I think will make a lot of sense. Could we do it sooner? Yes. It'll make a lot of sense as we make those changes to explaining it to the community and talking to the community about the reasons why, to do it at that time. So I think, as we look at this calendar and we have those discussions, which we're not done yet, as Jackie said, this is just a draft, those are all things that we've had talking points
Have
about.
you been able to find any other district that does it every week?
There are districts, so Westside does it every week, and they do an early dismissal. I've talked to Seward they do day long, that they have extra, so they have fewer instructional days. And they have they have their staff days, but they have fewer instructional days. There are districts that have looked at doing half days, and they just have the sporadic half days in there as well. There's other districts that they have schedules that allow their teachers to do it during the day. So they have common plan times, and their teachers have that common plan time, and they know that every Monday during our common plan time, we're meeting to do PLC time. So there are different things that we are looking at, and that's, but when we look at our elementary teachers, we have to have enough specials teachers, because you have to make sure that you have 6 different places for students to go. And so those are things that we're looking at too, because then we could do it if they all had that common plan, they could do it during that plan time as well. That could be another piece that,
Say that again.
so PLCs would be during a common plan time. So they would have other plan times throughout the week, but this one plan time, this 40 minutes is a PLC time. There are districts that will do that, or at the high school, we all have a second period plan. So during that second period, teachers will say, this is the day that PLC happens, and
So
they
for
will meet.
example, no math you know,
What?
all the math teachers would have planned on second period.
Yes, yep, yeah. So it's just looking at the scheduling and,
And do you think that's effective? Do you think you can actually do good, effective PLCs in 40 minutes?
yes, I do. I think that here's the thing, when you get focused on curriculum and focused on that assessment, because once you have it aligned, that this is exactly what we're teaching, so we're teaching main idea, I'm gonna go back to ELA, because that's my passion. ELA, we have main idea, and that is what we are teaching for 2 weeks. And all stories that we do within those 2 weeks, we will talk solely main idea. So on Wednesday, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna give a common formative assessment. It's the same one, we're all gonna give it. And then we're gonna come back Thursday morning right away, and we're just gonna talk about where our kids scored. And then what I'm gonna do is I may say, okay, Janet, I need you to take these 5, because you're gonna help these 5. Doris, you're gonna take these 5. I'm gonna take these other 5. And during our intervention time, during this hour, we're gonna take them and we're gonna work solely with them on, maybe they forgot a supporting detail or forgot details. They weren't able to figure out the details. Maybe it was, they just didn't understand, they got the details right, but they weren't able to put it together to do main idea. So yes, if you are focused, there is, and you have that data pieces and you have your priority standards identified, you should be able to get a very focused, targeted discussion
Can
in
I,
45 minutes.
can I sum all that up in maybe a couple sentences?
Yeah, sorry,
You're very passionate. It's
I
okay.
am.
I think one of the common misconceptions about PLC time is that it's all about writing curriculum, which is a very consuming process and takes a long time to do. You're right when you say a full day of curriculum emphasis is much more beneficial than a 2.5 hour dismissal every week. The 2.5 dismissal every week is much more beneficial in terms of the things that Jackie just mentioned in regards to organizing and attacking the things that pop up throughout the course of implementing that curriculum. So there's benefits to it, but I also understand the drawbacks to that 2.5 hours every Wednesday to the community, and I think we need to be very mindful of that. And I think part of the reason why it's never been done before is because with 4 elementary schools spread out across the town, in order to make sure 3rd grade here is teaching the same thing as 3rd grade here is teaching the same thing as 3rd grade here and here, or however it all matches up, that time was effective in helping with that. That will change when we're all in one school. And so 2.5 hours is not necessarily a great time to talk about delving into curriculum, but it is enough time to talk about, I'm gonna take these 5 kids, you're gonna take these 5 kids, and you're gonna take these 5 kids, and attack a certain standard or whatever you're working on together. So sometimes it's just not a complete understanding of what happens in the PLC time too. But
That wasn't 2 sentences.
sorry.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me. That how it works on the elementary, but at the high school level, the kids aren't in the class. So,
No,
if they all
but-
have second period to get together, there are no students.
Oh, absolutely, but we're talking about,
I don't know, never mind.
okay.
It still doesn't make sense, but okay. Any other questions? I don't know.
Let's go buy a vehicle.
Okay, we're gonna buy a car, buy a truck,
Buy a couple vans.
okay,
Are we ready?
yeah.
In the essence of time, which you've all been very gracious to volunteer again this evening, we appreciate that. You have 2 van quotes in front of you. We've spoken, and I'm gonna say Roy has done the majority of the legwork on this, spoken to all 3 dealerships in town. And for various reasons, these are the 2 quotes that we got back. We have the difference between the two quotes is roughly $2,000, and that's because one of them has a hitch package attached to it, and it's a 4.3 liter V6, so it's just about engine type. That may mean nothing to you. The nuts and bolts of it is, we have $60,000 of insurance, roughly $60,000 of insurance that came back from the hail claims. We have a $40,000 grant that was written to the Thomas Foundation. So what I'm telling you is we can purchase both of these vehicles. Here's my concern with doing that. We've got the money to do it. It's budget authority, which are two totally different things. So when we purchase this vehicle, we know that it may not arrive until next year because of the line, and that's one of the reasons why one of the dealerships said, no, we're not gonna do it, because we can't guarantee when it's gonna come in. So we can go ahead and put one of these on order, we may not see it for 6 to 8 months. Which then gives me some heartache about, or heartburn about budget authority. It's not about the money, those are two different things. We have the money through the insurance and the grant, but it's the budget authority. So I guess what I want you to do is I want you to have both of these to see what we got back. I want you to know that in December, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. If you want me to tell you what to do, I'll do that. But the bottom line is, here's what we got back. That's the information that we can afford. And in December, I think it would be good for us to at least put one of these on order and then see where we're at.
How many vans do we have?
I think we have 12.
Oh.
And one of them's, how about 11 and a half?
Does it make sense? I see it at a lot of, events, not necessarily a van, but more of a, it's not even a small bus, but I can't even think of what, yeah, that they just look like they're more school. You see them at golf, I see them when there's golf meets and stuff like that, and smaller athletic events or other events. Does it make sense to explore those at all?
We did take a look at those. We also took a look at the short minibuses that don't require a CDL to drive. They're 14 passenger, you don't have a CDL to drive them. The cost difference on them is about, from a van, you get maybe 4 or 5 more students in, but the cost difference is about $15,000.
Really?
So what we can do with 2 vehicles
That makes sense.
compared to 1. It's a great question.
I'm just curious.
I would recommend that we do get one with a hitch, because then one of the options we could look at later on down the road, and we do have the music trailer, but one of the other options we could look at to possibly tow things is coming up with another smaller trailer, so, because I know when we have different activities go, whether it's music or one act or drama or golf or swimming, they have a lot of equipment they have to take with them, and they could all work in one van if they had something to pull behind it, so a small trailer might be an option.
It was this first one that had the hitch package, right? The one with the larger motor?
Yeah.
Oh.
You definitely would want the V8 if you're pulling a lot of weight.
And that was my thought, is that we order one with the hitch and the V8, and then the second one, we could come back and just, make a decision on. But it's just the timing of how it all's gonna work, that's the concerning thing. So we'll have that on the December agenda for you. All right, last thing, moving on, is the new building update. Before we get to that, just one other, I sent you a text today, but Doug and Christina were both at the Exmark presentation today. We got the mower, and again, I just wanna give credit where credit's due. Lori Steele-Walt's the main cog in the wheel there in terms of writing the grant to get that. Our maintenance crew was ecstatic today. It's always nice to get new equipment, but when it's free, it's even like icing on the cake. So it's a $14,000 piece of equipment that essentially we got for free today. So that'll be coming out publicly as well. But before we get to this, I wanted you to know that. I've been promising you that as soon as we had the opportunity to put we got all the fly-throughs, and we got an opportunity to package all up into a video that we felt like we were gonna send out to the public, that we would show you. So this is it. We finally got those fly-throughs. Our beam class has done an awesome job of what I would call a perfect publication announcement for the new building. So we'll play that for you. I want to welcome everyone this morning to a historic day for Beatrice Public Schools and the community of Beatrice. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning." Beatrice Public Schools will keep going.
Today is an investment in the future for not only Beatrice Public Schools, but also the community.
It's a great day to be in Orangeville. This project started with a vision to build a building that served our youngest learners in an environment that encourages and inspires them to do better. BPS will provide facilities, infrastructure, and technology necessary to achieve our mission.
It's going to serve this community for decades and generations to come. Fall of 2024 will be here before we know it.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's our beam class did an amazing.
Great.
Yeah, that's 2 minutes, and there was just one little picture of the exterior that we had up there. The interior fly-through, we felt like was probably the most important thing to take everybody into the building. So the other thing that we do have is we do have the full exterior fly-through, or fly around the building, and then the interior, the full fly-through on that we will put as links when we send this all out. We have a meeting with Ashley Abramson from Houseman, who's created a website, and all that traffic will be directed through our website to their website, and those links will all be there, so people will see this video first and then have the opportunity to click on those fly-throughs, exterior and interior all together. Hopefully we'll have that ready to go out by the end of the week. But Doug and Christina, as soon as we have it, we'll make sure you have access to where that's at. That's all I have. Thank you for your time this evening. It's been a great discussion. If you have questions, don't be afraid to contact
Did
us.
you want to make a comment during public comment?
I could offer something related to the ACT, CSTA.
Could you tell us your name and where you're from?
I'm Chuck Riedesel from here in Beatrice, 721 Grant
Come
Street.
right up here, we can
Sure.
see you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak to something. There's plenty of times I'm sitting back there and say, boy, what I'd like to be able to say, comment on something. I did a study on ACT. It was specific regarding computer science, because that's what I was teaching at the time, and I had access to the records of the students who were coming in and in many cases failing or not making it. But I would say, as far as the numbers are concerned, a large majority of the students that I saw had ACT scores. And the success rate, I would say that those that were in the low 20s, about 23 and below, were dropping out rapidly from this computer science and computer engineering major. Those above about 28 had a good success rate. However, it was no guarantee of success. And as I looked at the individuals involved in this, my opinion is that it was temperament of the students, other kind of preparedness, because some students do a lot better job with standardized tests than they do in the real learning world. So I would say that the value of the ACT to me was an indication of what our students needed to accomplish. You talked about proficiency. I said, yeah, they need to be in at least the mid-20s to be what I would say proficient enough to be able to go on with something. But there's much more than that to guarantee any kind of success.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor